The State of Real Estate with your host, Gerry Lantain.
Welcome to the State of Real Estate. I'm your host, Gerry Lantain, and today's podcast/radio show is coming to you from the upper balcony patio at the Mill on Main restaurant overlooking the gorgeous Muskoka River in downtown Huntsville. Our episode today is going to focus on home inspections, and we'll be interviewing Home Inspector Leland Maw from Porches of Muskoka. But before we get to that interview, I want to do the market report. And the market report is brought to you by the Lakeland Association of Realtors. We're going to be comparing the statistics from August 2020 to August 2019. And here we go. New listings are down from this August to last August by 60%. And the total inventory of homes for sale in the Muskokas last year was higher by 64%. So we're down by 64% of total inventory in Muskoka, which means there is not a lot of homes for sale. On the other side of the coin, there are lots of buyers. Actual homes sold in August this year compared to August last year is up by 20%. So, here we are in the summer of COVID, and we are still in a seller's market. It is a very busy market. There's a lot of buying going on, and this puts the buyers at a disadvantage. You sometimes will have to make quick decisions, and you will be facing multiple bids and multiple offers in some circumstances. So, it just makes the prices go up a little bit higher when you're in a multiple bid situation. And again, that is a bit of a disadvantage to you. So it's a seller's market, and that's the market report.
The State of Real Estate with your host, Gerry Lantain.
Welcome back to the program. The interview today, as I mentioned earlier, is with Leland Maw from Porches of Muskoka, and Lee is a home inspector. Lee, what is a home inspector?
A home inspector. Well, they're basically, a home inspector is someone who is you're going to hire, or the client or buyer is going to hire, to go in and give an unbiased evaluation of the home that they hope to purchase, basically.
Excellent. And why is a home inspection important at all?
Well, a home inspection does a number of things. One, it's pointing out any deficiencies. That is not the only purpose of a home inspection. We're also looking at the good points, the good things of a home, not just the bad things. But the most important thing, it's an education for the buyer. What they can expect in costs coming up in the future, whether it's a new roof or a furnace, how to maintain the home, what type of maintenance is involved. Are they going to have to get up and clean their eaves trough every year? How often do they need to change their filters in their furnace? And just basically understand how the house functions and how it works.
Right. And again, if you can explain to us, why is that important to the home buyer in a sense, when they're buying a new home? I mean, I have some answers and I can answer, but because it's basically it's a safety valve in terms of making the purchase. Is that right?
Some people look at it that way. I like to look at it more as an education for the house. I mean, you get a lot of people that they find that they're the home that they want to have, or first-time buyers, and they love it, but they're mortgaged to the hills, and they need to understand that there is money involved in maintenance and what they're going to have to spend on monies in the near future to fix up, and some people just can't afford it, or that's not what they want to do. They don't want to deal with that.
Right. And so therefore, a home inspection condition would give you the opportunity. You're looking for a satisfactory report from the home inspector. And if it doesn't seem satisfactory to the buyer, I guess, in terms of what you were just talking about, how much more money it was going to cost them to get the house where they want it to be, then that gives them a way to get out of that particular deal and not pass that condition on the offer. As a, say, buyer who doesn't know much about homes, what are you going to see that I wouldn't see in a home? I'm looking at the walls. I love the rooms. I love the view. Oh, this is our dream house.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of things that the home inspector has to keep up on. We're also, most home inspectors belong to the associations, and they get recalls on stuff. we got a great furnace downstairs, but did you know there's a recall on that furnace? It's you know, the heat exchangers are cracking after so many years.
Okay. And this is information as a home inspector you're privy to?
We have privy to.
Okay.
Through the association, we get bulletins all the time.
Okay.
And it's the same with appliances, stuff like that. If they're going into a home where, like I said before, if they've stretched to the hilt and they got to come up with a whole bunch of money fast in the next few years, well, it's not beneficial to them.
Right. So the house is going to need a new furnace. It might need some other things, and those are thousands of dollars of expenses they might not have put money aside for.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about different parts of the house then.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start in the bottom, in the
Okay.
basement.
Mm-hmm.
Again, what are things that you might see that a regular buyer wouldn't, or that you might notice that wouldn't seem like a problem to a regular buyer?
Most people see it but ignore it, and that would be probably efflorescence on the concrete wall.
Okay.
A lot of people mistake it for mold. It's not. It's a white powdery substance, and a lot of people, you've probably seen it. If you were to rub it with your fingers, it's just like talcum powder. It's
like a
soft.
dust.
And basically what it is, it tells us that there's been dampness on that wall for some period of time, and it's leaking through. And when the water or dampness leaks through, it's dissolving the minerals and the calciums in that concrete or that block. And then when it dries on the inside, it's depositing on the inside of the wall.
Okay.
Not a big issue short term, but long term it can be, because once you start taking all the mineral out of that concrete, it starts to break down.
Okay.
So it tells us that, one, there's a drainage problem, usually on the outside of the building, whether it's with sloping or whether it's an older building that has plugged or collapsed weepers. They don't last forever either.
Right.
It's something that needs to be looked at.
Okay. I want to get back to the basement, but that being said, about outside, is the home inspection include the outside of the property?
Yes, it does. It includes, especially, it includes everything on the outside, the exterior envelope, the roof, windows, and the lot itself, the grading around the building.
Okay.
Which is something a lot of people don't realize. Grading is very important in that water must stay away from your building, stay away from your foundation. Your basement is a hole in the ground. And so if you allow water to sit along it, there's always a chance for it to come in. And as the building ages, that's when weepers, and that's when things start to weaken or break down, and that's when they start to leak into the structure. Not to say there's flooding, but you do have that dampness coming through the walls.
Right, right. From dampness to dryness, what is dry rot, and why, how would you find that?
There's a number of ways. Rot is something that...
Is it called dry rot?
Well, dry rot is basically boards or something that has gotten wet and rotted, and then it's dried up.
Oh.
Okay, but what happens is it's already broke down and starts to collapse, and that's when the bugs and everything gets into it. The thing with rot is, and the way we find it is, again, with moisture meters, but usually you can find it very simply. Your nose tells you. Sometimes you can find it musty. Moisture meter on the outside. If there's an area, for example, in a window well, if there's a window well on an older building, the first thing I'm doing in the basement is I'm checking for moisture in that wall underneath the window well, because that's the first place it's going to come in.
Yep.
You can find it through, you'll see it in the structure itself. It's sagging, it's broken, and 9 times out of 10 it starts to come through on the exterior envelope, for example, the siding and stuff, and you'll see it there too. And see, if you see rot on the outside of your siding, 9 times out of 10 you've got rot inside the wall.
Okay, right.
It's coming through from the inside, not the outside.
Okay. I think it's about time for a little break right now, so we'll do a little bit of commercial break and we'll come back to you right away. Thank you very much.
The State of Real Estate with your host, Gerry Lantain.
Welcome back to the State of Real Estate, and we are again with Mr. Leland Maw from Porches of Muskoka talking about home inspections. Well, we talked about the basement, Lee. What kind of things, now first of all, the average buyer, walking around the house saying to himself, what a beautiful house, oh my gosh, I love the view. They're not really going to look in the attic. And if they did look in the attic, what would they know to look for, and what would you be looking for as a home inspector?
Well, when I get into an attic, the first thing I'm looking for is insulation depth. Okay, nowadays they like to have at least R40 in the ceiling, which is 12 inches of fiberglass.
Okay, I was just about to ask, what's R40? Okay.
Excuse me. It changes a little difference with the cellulose now, but we're looking for roughly 12 to 14 inches of insulation. The second thing I'm looking for is ventilation.
Okay.
And ventilation can be much more important than you can have all the insulation you want in the world, but if that attic is not ventilated, you're going to have moisture issues, you're going to have ice damming issues on your roof, leaking issues. So it's not just insulation that people think about. It's the ventilation as well. And then I'm looking up at what type is it truss or is it rafter? Are they homemade trusses or are they engineered factory-made trusses? Reason being, codes change, and usually homemade trusses after a while with homemade gussets will start to sag and start to deflect a little bit.
So that's why you'll see in houses sometimes you'll have a kind of a slope in the ceiling or something?
Sometimes, but that's usually with a rafter and with in older buildings. You've seen it on old cottages yourself.
Absolutely, yeah.
Where the 2x4 rafters at two 24-inch centers and they're starting to sag. And
right.
Well, I'm over 50 now and I'm starting to sag in the middle too. So it's
that's good.
So there's the main thing in the attic, and then we're looking at is the roof decking, which is what sits on top of the trusses or rafters and what is underneath your shingles.
Okay.
I'm looking for any moisture damage, mildews. That's another indication of improper ventilation, and heat is building up in there. So those are the main things in the attic we're looking for. And of course pests, but almost every attic has them.
Right. Do you, as a home inspector, offer any solutions for any of the problems that you do find?
Definitely. We will give solutions or suggestions to what our experience tells us. Okay. If it's beyond that and it's serious, then we always recommend getting a specialist in, whether it's a roof specialist or a contractor or a basement specialist, whatever. I don't like to give prices because it can vary too, and things get into. But sometimes we will give a price. You know, expect to spend $5,000 or $10,000, but get a price because it could be more or less. But we try to keep it to a point where we need to tell them why it happened in the first place.
Right. What's
the
actual cause? So is it cause and effect that you guys are dealing with?
Exactly. So this is the cause. This is why. This is the effect. And if not fixed, this is what's going to happen. And this is what you need to do to fix it. Right. Sometimes it's a simple piece of a $5 piece of flashing. Yeah. On a deck ledger or something. Yeah. Yes, definitely. And just like you said, cause and effect. And that's basically how we write them.
Right. Yeah. What about other aspects of the property itself, such as, let's say, decks and railings, and then there's septic tanks and wells? Mm-hmm. Are these all encompassed in the same home inspection?
Yes. The septic system, it's something that we're certified in, and we do inspections of the septic.
Are all inspectors?
Not all inspectors, no. I would say in our area most of them are, but not all of them. Yep. There is an additional cost to it because there is digging of the septic and takes up more time basically. Yeah. But we're looking at a flow test. We will look at where the bed is. We will dig up the tank, what type of tank, size of tank, what's the sludge depth in the tank, and then we do a flow test. And I usually do that by filling up a bathtub. Okay. And watch the water go in and out. It's exciting.
And you're just looking for the speed of which the water is
and making
draining?
Sure whatever's going in is going out. It's not backing up. And then we will also dig a test hole in the weeping bed itself. And we're looking for any high water or any indications that there has been high water. They call sloughings, which is basically black watermarks and sludge that is accumulated from the bacteria.
Is that sewage contaminant?
Yes.
Wow.
Well,
okay.
not sewage itself, but it's weeping water from the septic tank, and it's bacteria. Yes.
Right on.
As for wells, there's not much we can do with a drilled well. A home inspector cannot do a drawdown test on a drilled well. The best they can do with a drilled well is their real estate agent usually gives them a well report.
Yeah, or
and that'll
water
tell them the
sample, too.
depth and the depth of the pump and the recovery rate. As for dug wells, we can do drawdown tests, and I have done them, and we do them if we're asked to. The only thing with a dug well is that there is no guarantee it's going to be like that a year from now.
Okay.
We could do a drawdown test on a well in May, just after the melt, and we got lots of water.
Sure.
In August, the water table changes, and there's no guarantee that's what the water's going to be.
Right.
Then. We only test water recovery. We don't test for quality or bacteria. That's something that the agents do with their potable water test that through the health department. We do not do that, but we do our drawdown test if need be.
Okay. So, at the end of your inspection, how do you translate this information to the client?
Well, first of all, let's start by saying that I'd like to have the homeowner at the inspection.
And that's a great recommendation. They should always be at the inspection.
Definitely,
yeah.
because you can read something or say something, but until you actually see it or understand it when you see it, it's totally different. And you get a totally different aspect of it.
Yeah.
So I like to have the client follow me around. And 9 times out of 10, they usually follow around for the first 20 minutes or so, but then they start going out on their own because they get excited about their new home and about this and that.
Yeah.
So I do a walkthrough. At the end, when I'm done, I'll gather them together, the husband, wife, or friend, or whoever is there, and the agent. They're welcome to go along as well.
Yep.
And follow around. And we'll go through the whole basic report of what we found and didn't find, and mostly hitting the important stuff.
Yep.
We do go through all the rooms and test receptacles and that, but I don't go through all that. And 9 times out of 10, it's usually the components of the home or the exterior of the home that's going to cost them the money.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the homeowner gets a actual written report.
It's a written report with photos. And they usually get that night or next morning at the latest.
Yeah.
So within 12 hours.
So photos and recommendations and such?
Recommendations, and it's broken down into defects and marginal defects, and then there's summary pages that'll tell them if they want to skip straight to that first.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Lee, I really appreciate the time you took to come and speak with us here at the State of Real Estate and how important home inspections are. And again, we want to thank the Mill on Main restaurant for letting us use their patio overlooking the beautiful river in here, Muskoka. All right, thank you very much and have a great day.
The State of Real Estate with your host, Gerry Lantain.
Well, I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Leland Maw, home inspector from Porches of Muskoka. And the tip of the week this week is simply get a home inspection, no matter what. It is the one thing that will give you peace of mind on the house that you're buying. They can see things that you can't. They know what to look for, and they know how to warn you to protect you from making a poor choice or a bad investment. It is extremely important to have that peace of mind. So the tip is get a home inspection, flat out.
The State of Real Estate with your host, Gerry Lantain.